This is kind of a short chapter, but really an important one. In this chapter, we're going to write the code to fire the projectiles from the first-person controller gun barrel at the targets that we have around the screen. So this is kind of the heart of the game, and let's get to it. So first thing we're going to do is launch Unity from our desktop shortcut here. And as long as you haven't opened any other projects in the meantime, it comes up to our first-person shooter game. And now we're going to add a script. So create JavaScript. And this is just going to name this to fire projectile. Makes sense. Enter. Double click to open it. This is the first script in this project, so we don't have to worry about making sure we're on the right script. There it is, function update, that'll be fine. We're going to add a variable here to start with, and this is going to be our first non-float variable. Call it projectile, and this is going to be a type rigid body, which refers to the physics of the projectile flying around. Now we're going to, after we finish this one here, we're going to zoom ahead. And here we go. Okay, this is our script. This is our first script. We've got two variables here. We've got the rigid body variable called projectile. We've got another variable called speed, which is a float, which is how fast the projectile is going to be moving. And then in our update function, we're looking for a input, a get button down of fire1. And this was one of those things that was hardwired that we looked at a couple chapters ago. Fire1 is connected by default to the left mouse button, the mouse 0 button. So what this means is the player, whenever they click the left mouse button, it's going to fire a projectile. So if they've clicked that button, let's look at what we've got here. We've got 3 lines of code. They're kind of complicated. We'll go through these, but I don't really expect you to understand 100%. A lot of this complex code, when you're just starting out, you just kind of have to find some of these code lines that work and just use them. So the first line is going to create a projectile. Remember, we've got the prefab, but we don't have any built projectiles because we said we were going to do that in the code, and this is where we do it. So var instantiated projectile. It's kind of a long name. It's descriptive. When you create a copy from a prefab like that, it's one of the terms that's used is called instantiated, and it's just a programming term. Don't worry about it. And it is of type rigid body, and it's going to equal, and then a command to instantiate a projectile object, which is from our variable above, and we're going to have to link in our projectile to make that work, so that's why it's an external variable. And transform position plus vector 3 0 minus 1 0. Now that's where this is going to start, because the first person controller is going to move all around the screen, and we want the projectile to be created wherever that happens to be. So it's going to put it at the position that the controller is at, plus a vector 3 of 0 minus 1 0. And the reason for that minus 1 and y is that we are connecting this, we're going to connect this script to the camera, but we want the projectile to come out of the gun barrel, which is a little bit below where the camera is. So that's what that minus 1 and y is all about. And then transform.rotation, we want it to be pointing in the right direction for whichever way the first person controller is pointing. So then instantiated projectile.velocity on the second line is equal to transform.transform direction vector 3 0.00 speed. So that's saying it's going to fire in Z, but if the first-person controller has been rotated around some other way, that's going to affect that. And if you remember back when we were first starting to move things around, we had the cube object that we gave a speed in just Z, but because of the rotation that we put on it, it actually went around in a circle. So that's kind of what's happening here. Now the last line, physics.ignoreCollision, is just a line we put in here to try to get the projectile not to collide with our first-person controller. So we put that in there. Actually, we're going to do one or two more things to try to make sure that doesn't happen. But that's those three lines. Like I said, they're pretty complicated. For now, you maybe get a little bit of idea of what's going on with them, but you kind of just sort of have to use them as they are. And so that's our script. And we can come in and save it. And close the editor. And there it is. Now, we want to attach this to the controller in the hierarchy, to the main camera, not the one in the project. So there it is connected. Come over here. And there we go. Fire projectile. And the projectile, you see it says none. There's nothing connected. So we're going to connect our bullet here. But actually before we do that, we have to do one thing to the bullet. And that's come up here, and we've got to actually make it a rigid body physics object. So there's that. There we've got rigid body. It's attached to it. It's got use gravity as checked. It's got some mass. It's going to be fine for now. So now it's ready to connect. So we'll click on the main camera there to get it, make sure it's open. And there's our bullet prefab. And you see there's none. And now we just drag it over here and boom, there it is. Okay, so now that's connected. We can come in and run this and see if we fire projectiles. Remember the left click. And there it goes. Gravity's working, and we've got a bit of a problem here. And that is we can fire these, and if we hit it, there. Yeah, well, the target doesn't seem to really care that it's being hit, does it? So we have to deal with that, and that is a collision. So we'll get to that in the next video, but that's it for now, and we'll see you there.